This is designed to try and help you with your Exeter fieldwork write-up. I am making this video in 2023, therefore potentially if you're watching this at a later date, it might not be quite as relevant. You might have been given slightly different instructions, but I'm sure some of it will still be helpful. Okay, if you're doing this work in 2023, then you have been set this work to do during Progress Review Week, which means you don't have any lessons and you're doing this relatively independently. This video, therefore, should form the main part of your support. You can pause it, rewind it, watch it lots of times, but what I wouldn't do is try and watch it all in one go. I think you need to do this write-up in chunks. It's probably the biggest piece of work you have done for Geography A-Level so far. You need to break it down, otherwise it's going to be quite overwhelming. So just be prepared to do one bit at a time. Other forms of support for this work are the field trip booklet, and the instructions for the write-up are on the very back page. The PowerPoint I'm going through on this video is on Teams, and of course the video that I'm currently making. Between those three things, you should find the answers, and your fallback plan, of course, is your teacher. Okay, how do you do well on the Exeter write-up? Okay. The first thing we need in your write-up, you are just copying. Yay! Find your fieldwork booklet and you're just going to copy the aim and hypotheses from the first page. That's going to get you 2 marks. So, easy marks, get them in the bag. Section number 2, theory means the geographical idea behind your fieldwork. We went to Exeter to investigate the success of urban rebranding. So the theory behind that is, why was urban rebranding needed? What was going on in CBDs that meant that they were struggling? What's all that about? What is urban rebranding? What elements are there within that? So if you answer the questions in that green box, you are covering the theory section. And then your location, fairly obviously, is tell us about the place that you've done the field work. You'll probably need to do a little bit of research here, but it's basically into Exeter, the CBD of Exeter, that sort of thing. Between the booklet, your knowledge from class, your case study, etc., you should have all of the answers for that. Section 3, risk and ethics. So risks are the things that could affect you when you're collecting your data, and ethics, or ethical considerations, to give them their full title, are the things that you could do when you're collecting your data which might affect other people or the environment, and they're very important. What we need you to think about is what could go wrong for you while you're collecting your data, and how do you minimise the risk of that. Now, you should have had some discussion in class and taken some notes from that, but also you might get ideas on the day, and I'm sure you can also find some ideas on the internet. It's things like slips, trips and falls. They can happen on any field trip basically, which is why we take a first aid kit and there are first aid trained members of staff. You might get lost, well that's why you've got a map and you've got an emergency phone number. It's those sorts of things, okay? Ethics is about being a decent human being, not getting in the way of other people, trying not to take photographs of other people, not dropping litter, that sort of thing. Fairly common sense, really. Can you just notice, please, for this section, that there are not that many marks available. We have given you the method of how you collect your data. You are just going to do a short personalised version because you as a group might have done things slightly differently or in a slightly different order, but don't get bogged down in this. It's just a set of instructions really of how you collected your data. What we would like is a little bit about sampling. Now, sampling means, unfortunately, with the best will in the world, we couldn't measure every single bit of Exeter's CBD. We had to choose which bits to measure. And I gave you this sampling strategy, and it's called stratified. Now what that means is I tried to make sure that the dots covered the section. So I tried to make sure they weren't, for example, all at this end of section 2. I've tried to cover the whole of the section, and I've tried to put them in places where the data will be meaningful. So you might want to do a little bit of research, but don't, like I said, this section is only worth 5 marks. We don't need you going to town on it, but just a little idea of how you collected your data and a reference to what stratified sampling is, please. You've been out and collected your data. We would like a table of results, but I would suggest that you might want to do that in Excel. So here is one I made earlier. Please can I just emphasize the fact that this data is completely made up. I have sat here this evening and randomly plucked numbers out of my head. Do not use this data, it will not help you in any way. But I would suggest that that might be the easiest way for you to do your table of results, all right? This is what you're looking for, and this might be a point at which you need to stop the video and sort of do a bit of other work first. The idea of the day was that you and your group would be responsible for 2 of these sections. You can't do more than 2 in the time that you have available. So you can only get enough data for 2 sections. That means you need data for the other 4 sections. And hopefully you listened to us and took it upon yourselves to copy that information from somebody else. Now, you might decide to take photographs on your phone. You might decide to Snapchat it to each other, share it on Teams. I really don't mind. But you cannot really go any further until you have clone town data for all 6 sections, 36 environmental qualities, so 1 for each dot, and 36 pedestrian counts. Now, what we will have told you on the day, and hopefully you listened to us, is hopefully you came up with some sort of coding system so that you know which environmental quality goes with which dot. Some groups went for A, B, C, D, E. Some groups had their own different systems. But it is quite important that you know which of these bits go with which dot and that you keep that data as a pair. Now, if I go back into here, later on in this process, you need to know, for example, that that environmental quality was taken at the same point as that pedestrian count. The data needs to stay as a pair, because when we move on to do a scatter graph and a correlation, that is important. It can't just be a random assortment. Anyway, make sure you've got enough data, and I would then put it into Excel. It is not compulsory for you to put it into Excel. I just think it will make your life much easier. If you are determined to do your graphs by hand, okay, but I do think you will save a lot of time, tears, effort if you just put it into Excel, as I have done here. Remember, this is made up data, it's meaningless, but I'm just going to use it to show how lovely Excel makes life. Right, now we're into the crunch time. This is where it might start taxing your brain a little bit, and as I said at the beginning of the video, just do one step at a time, okay? One thing, and then come back to the video, watch the instructions for the next bit, do the next bit, because otherwise you're going to find this quite overwhelming and you're going to want to give up. And we don't want you to do that. Okay, so these are worth quite a lot of marks. Look, this is where we want you to put your time and energy. Okay, hypothesis 1. You've got to start out with a bit of averaging, calculating some means, and I'm going to show you how Excel can help. So if we wanted to find out, this is section 1, look, all along here is section 1. So if I wanted to find out the average or the mean environmental quality for section 1, I'm going to choose that box, I'm going to press FX, I'm going to choose average, and then I'm going to select those because they're all of the environmental qualities for section 1. Hit return, ta-da! That is your average, okay? At the click of a button, and Excel's even cleverer than that, if I drag down like that, it will repeat the calculation. Can you see how that might be easier than putting lots and lots of numbers into a calculator and trying to work it out? At literally the click of a button, I have worked out the mean environmental quality for each zone. Yay! That's nice, isn't it? Then we need to do a box and whisker. This is what a box and whisker is. You might call it a box plot. It doesn't matter, they're called the same thing. I've only given you this as an example. What box plots do is they tell you not only which place or day, in this case, had the highest data, but also the spread of the data. So the further apart the box and whisker, the more spread out your data, the more condensed everything is, the more clustered your data. Now, if you have put your data into Excel, guess what, people? You can select it and you can get it, ta-da, to draw a box plot. All right, so this is why I'm recommending that you may well want to use Excel, because think of how much time it would have taken you to do that by hand. I don't mind if you want to do it by hand, but I'm just trying to prove to you that Excel can be a brilliant time-saving device. Okay, so you've calculated your means, you've done a box and whisker. Your final job is to choose one photograph per zone or per section. We've got 6 zones, we just want one photograph per section, and you're going to annotate it with why it got a good score or a bad score or what is going on. Okay? Then you're just going to talk about your findings. What do the means tell you? So if I go back into Excel, which is the highest mean? Oh, the highest mean is zone 5. The lowest mean is zone 2. We could talk about that. We could then go to the box and whisker and we could see if the data tells the same story. Okay, so do you see what I mean? There's quite a lot going on here, and this is why you need to do one thing at a time. Okay, so do the means, do that, annotate some photos, describe and explain. That's hypothesis 1. Don't worry, they're not all quite so involved. There's an idea of a box plot if you get lost. There's what annotation looks like. Right, hypothesis 2. This is where your data needs to be paired. We're doing a scatter graph and we're doing a Spearman's. Now, scatter graphs are the ones that look for relationships. They are the ones that you can add on a line of best fit. And Spearman's ranks is a form of statistical test that essentially does the same thing. It's looking for a relationship between 2 sets of data. Now, let's do the scatter graph first. Let me go back into my demo. Here is the paired data. So if I wanted to draw a scatter graph, now I'm going to do it quickly on here because otherwise this video is really going to be ridiculously long. If I go into scatter, oh, not much of a correlation, folks, is there? But anyway, not to worry. What we've got here is we've got a scatter graph between the 2 sets of data. And what you can then do is, using the menu at the top, look, you can swap things round, you can label your axes, you can do all sorts of things, and you definitely would want to do all of that. But I'm just trying to show you why you want your data paired, okay? And then, again, at the click of a button, it can do that for you. If you wanted to do your Spearman's rank on here, you just choose a random empty box. You go back up to the FX button. Now, this time we want statistical, and the command you need for a Spearman's rank in Excel is Correl, C-O-R-R-E-L, Correl, okay? And then we're going to select all of the environmental qualities to be array 1, sorry, and then, why is that? I've done something wrong. Sorry, folks. Let's go back in. Okay. So, statistical. Sorry about this. Coral. Okay. So, array 1 is there. Comma. That's right. I forgot that. Sorry, folks. Array 2, then I hit return. Ta-da! At the click of a button, I have a Spearman's rank result. Yay! So it's done it all for me. Sorry, I forgot about the comma. You can tell I haven't done it for a while on there. If you don't want to use Excel, there is an online calculator here, geographyfieldwork.com/Spearman's rank. So that one is just a website. You put the data into it and it will work it out for you. There's no point in 2023 doing stats from start to finish yourself because we have these things at our disposal. And the most important thing for exams even is, what does the result actually mean? Well, if it's a positive number, it's a positive relationship. If it's a negative number, as we have, it's a negative relationship. Now, I'm hoping you will not find this. We are predicting that the nicer bits of Exeter, i.e. the ones with a better environmental quality, will have more people in them. That sort of logically makes sense, doesn't it? Because my data is completely made up and completely fictitious, I've managed to make up terrible data, which suggests that the nicer bits of Exeter have less people in them. So that wasn't very clever of me, was it? But that's what the minus sign means. It's a negative relationship. As the environmental quality gets better, the pedestrian count goes down. Rubbish. Hopefully you will get a positive number. But what you then need to do is you need to compare your result with these critical values that I've given to you. For 36 pairs of data, these are the critical values. If your result is higher than 0.3063, you are 95% sure that there is a relationship between environmental quality and pedestrian count. If your result, is higher than 0.4251, you are 99% sure that there is a relationship between environmental quality and pedestrian count, which is better than being 95% sure. If your result is lower than both numbers, and mine definitely is, it doesn't matter about the minus sign in this situation, it's the value of the number, but my number is 0.0227, that is way lower, so I'm not sure of anything. And we saw that, didn't we, on the scatter? There was absolutely nothing going on in terms of a relationship. So that might take you a little bit of time. As you can see, yes, it would be lovely if you could have different colours for the different sections. I did it quickly and I didn't faff around with that, but yeah, it would be lovely if you could. Right. Hypothesis 3, we're back to familiar territory, folks, and I'm not going to show you how to do this on Excel because you did this for your beach clean. So I'm not going to do that. This is what we mean by a divided bar. You will have 6 divided bars, one for each section of Exeter, and it's going to be divided up, look, into the type of shop or service. So you're going back to your booklet, your Clone Town data, and you need to know how many pubs there were, how many clothes shops there were, all of that stuff. Now, I haven't put that into Excel because I've run out of time this evening to do that, but you should have a photograph or your raw data. So you'll have 6 bars. The height of the bar will be the number of shops in that section, divided up into the different types of shop or service in that section. All right. And then the pie chart is just going to be chain and independent. You will only have 2 colours on your pie chart, one for chain, one for independent. Okay, I appreciate that's just a very random pie chart. I don't really know why I felt the need to remind you what a pie chart looked like, but just in case you'd forgotten. But yours will only have 2 colours, okay? The number of chain stores and the number of independents, and then you describe and explain that. So I'm hoping you're thinking it's getting easier as you go on. It is hopefully meant to do that. Finally, you're nearly there. All you do for hypothesis 4 is you do the clone town calculations, which is honestly easy maths, and you talk about it. Now this, which is very blurry, I apologise, this is in your fieldwork booklet. So if you can't see it very well on screen, it is there. It's about page 4, I think. It tells you how to work out the clone town score. Here is a worked example for you, so you have got the instructions. But what I've included this for is what the result means. If you get a number between 0 and 25, you have found that it's a clone town. It's full of chain stores. It doesn't have its own character or identity. It's just like any other bit of CBD. If it's between 26 and 35, it's sort of in the middle. It's got some clones, it's got some independents, it's kind of a mix. If by any miracle, and I will be kind of surprised if you do this, but it'd be lovely, if you get 36 and above, you have found a place with its own unique identity, lots of independent shops, lots of things that you wouldn't find elsewhere. It's very unusual to get numbers up around here, but like I said, if you do, that is fantastic. So you work that out for each of the 6 areas and then you just talk about them, okay? Finally, conclusion. Apologies about my dog barking. I am not restarting this video from scratch. Your conclusion is very short. It's just, did you prove or disprove your hypotheses, and just summarise your key results. Notice not many marks available. Finally, okay, your evaluation. We will try to get you to think about this on the day. But you just need to be constantly thinking of 3 questions. What was good? What wasn't? How could it be better? So I'm going to give you a couple of ideas, a bit of inspiration here. So I'm going to go right back to the map. First of all, one of the good things is we collected lots of data. Okay, so we've got 36 environmental qualities, 36 pedestrian counts. That's brilliant. Problems. The environmental qualities were done by different people, and environmental qualities are very what's called subjective. It's down to a person's opinion. So how can we really compare data collected by different people? That doesn't really work very well. In an ideal world, we would have collected all of the pedestrian counts at exactly the same time, because it's not very fair if one pedestrian count is done during lunch hour when there's lots of people out walking around, and the other one is taken an hour and a half later when it's much quieter. So there are definite issues with our data collection, which we sort of do on purpose to try and help you with your evaluation. But if you just constantly think what was good, what wasn't, how could it be improved, if you did it again, you will be on track to write a cracking evaluation. Now I'm going to go right back to the beginning. Support available to you. You've got the fieldwork booklet, you've got this PowerPoint, which will be on Teams, you've got this video. If you are still completely stuck, then you need to get in contact with your teacher and ask them to help you. All right, it's absolutely fine to ask us for help. That's the point of us. So don't be embarrassed to do that. This is a big piece of work. You need to break it down into bite-sized chunks, and you need to ask if you get stuck. Very best of luck, everybody.